The morning light crept through the wide glass windows of the Starkey Enterprise's penthouse, casting a golden glow over the marble, floors, and polished furniture. David Stark buttoned his crisp white shirt and adjusted his tie before. Glancing at his watch, the man was a symbol of control and success, a billionaire CEO who had built his empire from the ground up. Every second of his morning routine was planned. His mind was already racing. Through meetings, mergers, and flight schedules, but one small presence in the room always slowed his pace. On the kitchen counter sat Emma, his 6-year-old daughter. Her tiny legs swung back and forth as she ate cereal from a silver bowl. Her long hair was still messy from sleep, and her eyes wide with the soft wonder only a child could have. She was his calm in a world that never stopped. Moving, he poured himself coffee and looked at her reflection in the window with a quiet smile. "You're going in the helicopter again, aren't you, Daddy?" she said between small bites. Her tone was casual, but her eyes carried something else, a shadow of worry. He nodded absent-mindedly, tapping his tablet. "That's right. Sweetheart, I have a meeting in Seattle, and I'll be back before dinner. You'll hardly notice I'm gone." Emma stopped chewing. Her spoon hovered in the air, then she looked up, her voice barely above a whisper. "Daddy, don't go today." Her tone was serious in a way that made him turn around. "What do you mean, honey?" She put the spoon down and pressed her palms flat against the counter as if holding onto something invisible. Her voice shook. "Daddy, your helicopter will explode." The words hit him like ice. For a second, he forgot how to breathe. He looked at her face, pale eyes, wide lips. Trembling, she wasn't joking, she wasn't playing. The room fell quiet. Except for the faint hum of the city outside, he forced a smile, though his hands had gone cold. "Sweetheart, that's a scary thing to say." Why would you think that? She shook her head. "I don't know, I just saw it when I was dreaming last night. You were in the sky and there was smoke and fire." "Daddy, please don't go." He knelt beside her, gently lifting her chin so she would meet his eyes. "Dreams aren't real, princess. They can't hurt us." She didn't speak, only wrapped her arms around his neck, holding on tighter than usual. And though David smiled and whispered comforting words, a strange, uneasy feeling began to grow deep inside him. The rooftop of Stark Enterprises shimmered with heat and noise as the helicopter blades began to spin, sending gusts of wind whipping across the landing pad. David Stark stood near the edge, his suit pressed, his briefcase in hand. He watched the city below spread like a silver map, and for a moment felt the familiar rush of power. The world was his, and yet something inside him was unsettled. The echo of his daughter's words kept circling in his mind. "Daddy, your helicopter will explode." He had laughed it off downstairs during breakfast, but now as the wind howled around him, the laughter felt hollow. His head of security, Marcus, stepped forward, shouting over the roar. "Everything clear?" Sir David nodded and started toward the open cabin door. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Emma's small face appeared, smiling from a video call. He hesitated, thumb hovering over the green button. Then he lowered the phone, sliding it back into his pocket. He couldn't look weak in front of his staff. As he lifted one foot toward the helicopter, a sharp instinct stopped him. A heavy weight pressed in his chest, the kind that couldn't be reasoned away. He turned back to Marcus. "Check it again. Fuel, hydraulics, everything." Marcus blinked, surprised. "Sir, the maintenance team cleared it an hour ago." "Check it again." David's tone left no room for argument. The mechanic hurried back under the chopper, kneeling to inspect the panels. The wind grew louder. The seconds stretched thin. Then a sudden shout cut through the air. "Sir, stop!" The mechanic's hand emerged, smeared with fuel, waved a cracked line from beneath. "The engine, sir. The fuel line has a split. If we'd taken off, it could have ignited instantly." The rotors slowed to silence. David stood frozen, staring at the machine as realization sank in. The warning, the dream, the fear in his daughter's eyes. Every detail returned with sharp clarity. The men around him spoke in hurried voices, but he didn't hear them. He simply turned away and looked up at the pale morning sky. Hours later, when he reached home, Emma ran into his arms, still wearing her little pink pajamas. He lifted her off the ground, holding her, tightly pressing his face into her hair. "You saved my life." "Sweetheart." She looked up at him, her voice soft. I told you, Daddy, the helicopter would explode. He held her, tighter, knowing this time he would never doubt her again.